Today I'm finding out if the Raspberry Pi 4 8GB version is decent for photographers. Let's get started. Here is the main component, of course, the 8GB of RAM Raspberry Pi. I have the CPU, I think that's the RAM. Other chips, of course, lots of stuff to the functionality like Wi-Fi. I have the USB on the side here, the fast 3.0 ports and the standard ones. Ethernet, if you want to use that instead of Wi-Fi. You have the two micro HDMI ports for display, which is nice to have it directly on there. They are smaller, but it is nice to have two of them. And the USB for the power. On the bottom of the board, that's where you put your micro SD card. Normally you'll put the OS on here, but it is a little bit slower than these 3.0 ports, so you can consider using one of these for the OS if you want. I bought the full kit with the SD card just to show how easy it is, preloaded, ready to go. You can easily make your own. The data is all available on the Raspberry Pi website, so you can download that and load up an SD card. Includes a memory card reader, USB to micro SD. You can use any USB power supply, but in the case of the more recent Pis, they use a lot of wattage because they have USB ports that push power. In this case, it's pretty decent. We've got 3 amps at the 5 volts. Has some heft to it, which is nice. 2 micro to standard HDMI cables. Pretty convenient to have them in the box. This is an official case. It's made out of plastic. I've seen cases that are metal, but keep in mind that if you do get a full metal case, it might not be as good with your Wi-Fi if you are wanting to use Wi-Fi on the Pi. Actually, we've got some little heat sinks that I can put on pretty quickly. You probably want to be mindful of these in the future because they could fall off the device and short something. If your case doesn't work standard, like the heat sinks will always have gravity helping them. Really nice instructions. So in this case, it's got a push on the sides here, just little tabs. And I assume you can just slot this guy in here. Put the memory card in. So it doesn't go in too far, but the case keeps that in mind. So this does not have a power switch. It'll just turn on automatically. Here's the Raspberry Pi all set up, ready to go. I have 2 different displays going. I also mentioned the SATA M.2 drive. I had it available and has the pictures on it. Goes to the Raspberry Pi through USB. I tried to install various programs. The issue was that with a Raspberry Pi, it's an ARM-based processor, so there were quite a few programs that would just not work at all. Maybe in the future, as ARM becomes more and more popular, hopefully software will follow suit even more so than it has currently, but it's just something to really keep in mind if you're going to go with a cheap little ARM-based computer like this. The thing that we can first look at is in preferences, add remove programs. So in here you can find easy to install software. Let's look for raw therapy. PE. So if you know the name of a piece of software, you can search on it like this and easily install it by clicking the little checkbox, and it'll install into the computer. But we can start off with raw therapy because this is the one that works and it has a lot of functionality to it. See, it takes a little bit of time on the Raspberry Pi to start up. Not the fastest thing. I am using the micro SD card for the operating system. You can switch that up to a USB device and be a bit quicker. All these pictures, a bunch of test pictures from different cameras that I wanted to see if it would work in this software, are available. I have these on the little M.2 drive, so it should be the fastest possible on the Raspberry Pi. So to load these up, the first time I loaded this, it took quite a bit longer because it was pulling thumbnails and doing all that stuff. You have a lot of options here. I think this program is probably one of the better ones. Now there is an offshoot of raw therapy called Art, which we'll take a look at. This isn't the fastest thing ever, but I think it is functional enough to use in the field. You know, you take it on a trip, you get this little box that you can hook up to your hotel room TV or something. You bring a tiny little keyboard, maybe a wireless mouse. They would work nicely. And you can store data on this and easily like back up your pictures and all that, which I might make a feature video on with a little screen and things. That would be fun. There's not much to say unless I really wanted to get into the details of this program, and I'm not an expert on it. I've used it a few times in the past. It's up to you to look through here and see if it's going to work for you. Now, one issue with RAW therapy currently is that it does not support the CR3 RAW pictures. So M50 from Canon, now the offshoot called Art, which I'll pull up real quick, is capable because it uses a different way of loading pictures, but it's not going to work on this specific computer at the moment, as far as I'm able to make it work or not. One nice website to find software is this Alternative 2 website. Gives you a lot of options and things to check out. Darktable is another program to check out on Linux and Windows 2 or Macs if you want that, but it doesn't work on this computer, so that's something we can't check out at the moment. So you can click on a program and then see a list of alternatives and see if they're good or not, or you want to check them out based on some basic information. Let's go to alternatives to RAW therapy, Windows plus free or Linux I should say, whatever, however you want to say it. So there are a lot of other options. Light Zone, I don't think was one I was able to install. That one looks interesting, so you definitely want to check that one out. Aftershot is a paid program in Linux, which is probably a good option. I would assume here's the Art that I was talking about. Actually, you can use this on Windows, which if you have a Windows computer available, you can at least try it out. I think a lot of the time it's going to work a little bit better on Linux because that's the intended platform. But if you really like a piece of open source software on Windows, chances are you'll get a better experience on Linux. Here it says Canon CR3 RAW files are supported thanks to LibRaw. What you can do maybe is look around and see if there are any other programs that do support ARM-based processors for Raspberry Pi and use this LibRaw. It's a lot of research, really, trying to find things that work, trying to install it, which can be a challenge if it's not in the main list of easy access stuff. G-Thumb, I think that's one that we have. We've got Digicam, another one I'm pretty sure. Let's try G-Thumb. I do think that Linux lags a little bit in support for a lot of stuff. People donate their time. Maybe sometimes they're paid through different means to work on this open source stuff, but it's not going to be like Photoshop. You can actually run Photoshop maybe on Linux through Wine in different ways, but you're still using a paid program. I'm very new to all this stuff. Way back in the 2011, 2012, around there, I was using Linux full time. I was trying to use it as my main computer, but I was getting more into the video stuff, and it was a big hassle at one point, especially with video, trying to get libraries working, trying to make things just run okay. It was a pretty difficult challenge, and I'm still getting the same vibe as it was back then, but there is better and more stuff available, which is always good. DNG, I think that, yeah, I converted my Pentax, old Pentax files to DNG way back, just out of convenience. Maybe not the smartest thing, but it works still. K7. So a lot of these would probably be more compatible than my old files if I had them. Even though that LibRaw supports CR3 and it's apparently not working in G-Thumb. Maybe they're back a version or two. It took Windows stuff quite a while. The AC/DC that I was using took a really long time to get CR3 RAW support, but it's going to lag even more in a lot of situations. Just things to consider if you do want to switch to free open source software. Go x86 to get the most compatibility, the most available stuff. But these are nice programs in general. They work well. You can see there are some quirks, like this should be rotated, but yeah, it's supporting a decent amount of cameras. If you have an older camera, you shouldn't have any issues with that. But G-Thumb, that's a nice piece of software, it looks like. Let's see what else we have. Digicam. I don't think this works on the computer. I've tried loading it up before, but just nothing appears to function, which is too bad because that was a good option. One of the most well-known programs for any type of graphical work, you can use it with pictures, of course, as well, is GIMP, the GNU Image Manipulation Program. It's been around a really long time. I'm not a huge fan of how it works, but they've improved it a lot over the years. So let's try opening a picture. See, I wouldn't really expect this to work with RAWs directly, but there might be some type of plugin or some type of other thing. So in this case, you can see that it works with raw therapy to kind of mesh together. So here's an old picture from the computer club in college. See, I'm getting up there in age with that screen. You can, of course, do compositing. You can do everything for the most part in this software. Just takes a lot of time and effort to learn. There's a bunch of options in the color menu that you use for your photos to adjust the exposure, adjust the black levels, whatever you want. So GIMP is definitely a good option for photography if you want to do like individual pictures and do some serious edits on those. Cave photo album. Browse to the images, see how this works. Let's just load that up. And nothing. So that didn't appear to function. Let's try something else. No Max. I found the folder right away. Hey, that was easy. It's possible I pulled this up before. Some old pictures from phones and everything else. Okay. It's a nice view around here. Let's see what else it has. Looks like you can adjust things a little bit too. So if you want a very simple editor, I could see if I did make a backup device using something like this would work out nicely for this simple interface. Nomax Image Lounge. Interesting. Nomax.org. Let's check out their website real quick. CR3. Interesting. Let's see if I have the right version. So it says 3.16. Let's minimize that. 3.12. It looks like for the moment 3.12 is the official version. So in this case, I'd probably do some searches to see if I can install. I don't know the terminology sometimes. So there are definitely certain terms that if you know what it is, it's a lot easier to figure out what to do. Let's go back to Nomax, see if they have some type of way to install this. I think this is a good exercise to see if it'll work. Windows, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Debian Fedora, official repositories, so you can download it and compile it. Let's see, I'm gonna pull up a terminal, just paste it in there and see what happens. Sure. This specific computer, Raspbian operating system, is based on Debian, which also Ubuntu is based on Debian. So there is some level of compatibility with those compared to other versions of Linux, distributions of Linux. Once that's done, I can follow the rest of the directions here and see if it does anything. If you want to be really effective in Linux, you still need to go into the command line. You still need to be able to understand how to install the latest software, the latest builds of software, if you need specific features. Now, if you have an older camera, you have older stuff, you just need something that works for old stuff. It's going to be probably just fine a lot of the time. But if you do buy a new camera, it's the same situation on Windows too, but it's usually a little bit quicker, especially if you just buy the Adobe Photoshop Lightroom stuff. It's usually the fastest way to get support for your latest camera. In my case, I don't, so I still have some lead time with the Windows stuff too. You know, you get pluses and minuses. The benefit here, this computer, very cheap. It seems fine so far with the photo editing. Looking at raw therapy, that's pretty good. This Nomax looks nice as well. There are a few things that work. Of course, like I said, with the x86 stuff, you'll get more options, more software, in general more support, but this is fun to mess around with. It's cheap and I don't have to mess with my computer or laptop. All right, so we did that step. Now we can try this step. I'm pretty sure I have Git installed, which is the source control. Paste it in here, run it. So it's taking all of the source files from Nomax and it's putting it on this computer and getting it ready to compile. All right, we need to go into this directory that I mentioned, Nomax. So I'm going to go back a directory, figure out where I am. You can see that our one is in here, Nomax. So change directory, Nomax. Go just look at it and see what's in there. And here is where we mkdir make directory build cd build. We moved to the directory. Now we're going to run this command cmake. Or it built probably the stuff to get ready to compile it. Now compiling stuff on this little computer might not be the quickest thing ever. I think if you're gonna really get into this, you probably want to get a case with better cooling for the computer. This gets pretty hot, which I'm gonna pull up here again. It's literally burning hot. That's about as long as I can keep my fingers on these tiny little heat sinks that came with it. You can buy a little fan for the official case, but I hear that it's pretty obnoxiously loud when it runs. If you do want to really get into this, just buy a regular computer. Make sure that all your components will work properly in Linux. That's a big thing, is software and drivers. You have to be very careful about which things you want to use. If you use older components, then you should be fine. But if you're going to use new top of the line, recent stuff, like a very recent processor, very recent motherboard, graphics card, you might run into some issues. Good, so far so good. Now we've got sudo, sudo, make oh, that was quick. Now we've got sudo ld config. Okay, let's see if it's got a executable in here. Oh, yes, look for one of those CR3s. Oh boy, oh man, what's happening? Could not load. Oh, is it not working? Make sure we have the 3.17. Why is it not working? What am I missing here? So at this point, I would look through here and see if I'm missing anything. Maybe I need to make all these plugins. Paste. There we go. It's T. Okay. So now I'm cloning the plugin stuff, which why I didn't do that in the first place, I don't know. So we do have Nomax plugins directory, cd to the browser, and then do this thing. Okay. Does it have? It does have a plugins directory. So I think I need to go to the build directory. Cmake. Just gonna copy this. Do a thing. It did the thing. I'm going to make the thing, which, It's building stuff. Oh, plug in. Fake. Oh yes. I think it might work. I think it's working. So hopefully libraw will be in these plugins in function, and then we will get CR3 in this program. If you wait long enough, all of this stuff should be eventually integrated into the official stable build of the program. So if you wait, you won't have to do stuff like this. If you don't want to wait, you have to do stuff like this. So we did the make, we're doing the make, and I need to do the install and then do the LD config. It's not in there. Do I need to go into build? Whatever. Okay, plugins. We don't have any plugins. Let's try to open stuff anyways. Got CR3s. Let's look at anything else that we got in here real quick. Shotwell, let's try that. That works. It's nice. It does not appear to open the CR3s. Here's a X10 file from Fujifilm. Can enhance, can adjust. Lots of cool stuff. This actually feels a little quick, which is nice. I wanted to straighten things. So there's some decent basic functionality in this one. That's shot well. So this is UF RAW. If you have an older camera, this should give you a lot of functionality to edit things. It's an older camera. That was my second decent camera, the Finepix S5100, and I eventually converted the Fuji RAWs to DNG. Alright, I think that's enough. You can see the Raspberry Pi seems decently quick with photo editing. It's not the fastest thing ever, but I wouldn't complain too much. It seems okay, and these are raw files, you know. It's maybe a little slow to adjust things, but it works okay. With software support, ARM processors, yeah, it's not going to be as good right now as the x86 standard stuff, more used stuff. But you do have a few options. You can see what I found with not a huge amount of effort. Try to install the Arch Raw Therapy version with the CR3 support, or at least I wasn't able at the time to get it to install. But there are other options. It's just putting forth the effort to make it work. If you need base level functional stuff for older cameras, older hardware, you should be fine. And then use the versions of the software that are official, stable, and easy to access with any type of distribution's basic graphical interface for installing and removing programs. You should be fine. You want your recent camera to function fully with RAWs and other things. But I mean, if you use JPEGs, you shouldn't have an issue at all, really. It's fun to mess around with. It's not something I'm going to go into full time back to Linux. It's just, I don't think it's ever going to fully be there, be the most supported ever, unless official paid things like kind of die out somehow. So if you want the best of everything, the most recent camera supported, Photoshop, Lightroom, maybe, I can't think of the other ones at the moment, but there's a few others, Mac stuff, I'm sure there's other things too as well. But if you can handle general older stuff, it's okay. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this long video. I don't know, it depends on how I edit it, but I'm definitely going to mess around with this Pi more. I'm going to try with video stuff maybe. We'll see how that goes. I think it'd be even worse than this, but maybe not. And also potentially get a little screen, make a backup device out of it, or do other things with it, camera module, things like that. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this video and a look at Linux and specifically on ARM devices like the Raspberry Pi 4. I'm Scarf Banzai, thanks.